The Julian Page Institute gained possession of Subject 174, Chameleon Man, on March 7th, 2022, after its remains were found by a fisherman along the Sacramento River. The Institute has determined its threat level to be minimal, its intelligence to be average, and status as deceased. The Julian Page Institute received the statement from Dr. James Howell, a therapist who came across the bizarre character in the 80s. Will Chameleon Man and his friends be able to stop the evil Toad from commencing his evil plan? Or will the fate of the universe be at stake to this slimy salesman? Tune in next week to find out. The blaring yet catchy theme of The Adventures of Chameleon Man and Friends played over the overhead speakers as I walked out of my office. I looked up from a clipboard of paperwork at my next patient, a young boy named Oliver Hughes. He was having trouble sleeping, and so far I wasn't sure how to help him. I greeted him with a smile, and he waved half-heartedly, paying more attention to the television, feeling dismayed that he missed the Chameleon Man episode. I was about to welcome him into my office when I remembered I'd forgotten my notes about Oliver in the filing room. I told him to wait, and he continued to stare at the screen. I walked over to my files, assuming that Oliver's father, who was currently reading the newspaper, and my assistant Glenn would keep an eye on him. "Look!" Oliver shouted. "It's Chameleon Man!" "All right, bud," I shouted back. "I'll see him too, just in one sec." I opened the O section of the filing cabinets and searched for his file. "It's just like on TV! You have to see this!" I heard a loud shushing from someone else in the room, probably from Glenn. Confused, I shut the cabinet. The file wasn't there, but I caught a glimpse of it out of the corner of my eye. It was on the floor, half opened amongst a handful of other files, almost as if someone had been going through it and dropped it. It was probably Glenn, though my mind did jump to an intruder for a brief moment. I heard Oliver again, this time badgering his father. "Can I go with Chameleon Man?" "Chameleon Man is not real." I could practically hear the eye roll all the way here. "But he's—" "I'll not have another word." I finished returning the files back to the cabinet and walked out, back into the lobby. I scanned the room, and something was wrong. Something I couldn't exactly... Oliver was gone. His father was still engrossed in the news. He hadn't noticed. I looked around, and Glenn wasn't at the register. Instead, I eyed him, walking to the toilet, down the hall. "Where's Oliver?" I asked his father, confused. "Isn't he with you?" he replied, not looking up from the paper. "No," I puzzled. "I told him to stay here. He was just talking to you." "Maybe he went to the toilet or something," he groaned. I walked over to Glenn, just as he reached the lobby. "Did you see Oliver?" "No," Glenn shrugged. "I thought he was with his dad." "What the hell?" I swore. "Where is he?" I began to panic now. I thought back on the spilled folder on the floor. Could an intruder have gotten in? Did anyone see them? Surely someone would have seen something. "Glenn!" I was about to call Oliver's father, but I decided not to. "We need to find him, now!" I felt a brush of wind and noticed that someone had left the door, a crack, open. I pointed to it and nodded to Glenn. We were on our feet before anyone could say another word. We ran outside, feeling the hellish California heat. I searched the playground and the neighborhood while Glenn looked in the alleyways. We needed to find Oliver. But he wasn't there. No matter how hard or where we looked, he was nowhere to be seen. I sighed in exhaustion, sweating profusely as we walked back to the clinic. We need to call the cops. I don't know what else to do. And then I noticed something odd. Something I couldn't explain. There was a handprint on the plexiglass door, and it was definitely not human. The fingers were longer than human fingers, and there were 5 fingers, though the groupings were wrong. 3 fingers were on the right side, and 2 were on the left. Right, and there were noticeable scrape marks on the glass. Think it was a mountain lion? I asked. Their paws don't look like that, Glenn replied. Confused and defeated, we went back inside. I saw Oliver's father, still reading as if nothing bad happened. I sighed and reached for the phone. It took a whole hour for the cops to arrive. And when they did arrive, it didn't seem like they cared at all. High and mighty Chief Pritchard was eating the last crumbs of a donut and ordering a young new-looking officer to go buy more from the Dunkin' Donuts across the street. Equally defeated as me, the officer ran off into the distance. So, how can I help you today? Chief Pritchard said, licking the sprinkles off his lips. A boy named Oliver Hughes went missing at 2, I informed. I called you guys an hour ago. He could be dead by now. Maybe he just ran away, the chief replied indifferently. He'll be back eventually. No, he isn't the type, I sternly rebutted. I'm his doctor. And what you need to do is... Okay, he shrugged nonchalantly. I'll have them comb the area in an hour. In an hour? We have to find him now. Isn't time of the essence because... The chief walked away, meeting the younger officer running towards him, panting and huffing. He smiled greedily as he snatched the box of donuts. His greedy smile quickly turned to a frown as he saw the contents. Buckley, he hollered, are you deaf? I asked for chocolate-glazed donuts, and you bought cream-filled donuts. I'm sorry, Chief, they ran out, the young man stammered. Enough with the excuses. The chief angrily stormed away with the box, pushing Officer Buckley to the side as he marched to Dunkin' Donuts. Officer Buckley sighed and sat, looking crushed. I went over to him and asked him, What's wrong with the chief? Ever since the previous chief retired and Pritchard got put in charge, we haven't been actual cops, he replied in dismay. But me and some of the good ones are here to help, in any way possible. All right, I responded, then proceeded to tell him everything I knew. In contrast to the chief, Officer Buckley was calm, collected, and took notes on everything I said. Listen, he started. Chief Pritchard is going to forget about all of this by the time he finishes his next box of donuts, but I'll see what I can do about arranging a search party. I'll call your office if we get any more info. Thank you. Chief Pritchard was back now, a box of donuts in one hand and the other stuffing his face. How did this guy ever get promoted? Right, he began, crumbs spilling out of his mouth as he talked. What are we doing here? Let's go! With that, the officers left, speeding away from my office and almost hitting a tree. And after that, there wasn't anything else I could do. So I called it a day in the office. I went over to the library, logging onto a computer and searching up for more information to see if any other children had gone missing, to no avail. Feeling like nothing could be done about this, I dragged myself home, taking a glance at a board, and to my horror, I saw 3 missing children posters. They all had descriptions of where they were last seen and what they were last seen wearing, and a number to call. Oliver wasn't the only one to go missing, and I was determined to get down to the bottom of this. If the police weren't going to do it, I would. I spent the rest of my day thinking about the case, trying to remember if anything had stuck out to me, anything that could be considered as foul play. But as hard as I thought, I couldn't think of anything. Well, except the handprint on the door. Officer Buckley had photographed it, though, and I was sure he was competent enough to find out what exactly it was. I hung up the phone. I thought about going back to the library. Maybe I'd missed something. I even got so far as to open my door, when I noticed there was a storm raging outside. Sighing, I finished my dinner, took a shower, brushed my teeth, all that, got into bed, and closed my eyes. Sleep, at last. And I dreamt of the strangest things. Chameleons and television, starring Chief Pritchard as the evil toad. Chameleon Man, an alligator, a snake and a turtle were battling the toad while children looked on in anticipation of what happened next. And then I woke up. awakened from slumber by a terrible noise. I glanced at the clock. It was 2 in the morning. The noise continued, a screeching kind of thing, like metal against metal. It continued for a second, and then pop, screech, pop, and again. Screech, pop, and again. I rubbed my eyes and put on my glasses, confused. The sound was coming from opposite the room, behind the closed curtains that I'd gotten to prevent a particularly bright street lamp from keeping me awake. Screech, pop. What the hell? Screech, pop. I got up and walked towards the curtain as the sound continued. I heard the rain patter against the window as I neared. I heard the pop louder this time, and I threw open the curtains, revealing. I yelped in terror as I saw something that chilled me to the bone. It was Chameleon Man. It was Chameleon Man in the flesh. The uncanny bipedal thing stood outside my window, a single palm pressed up against the glass, fingers long and separated, just like the handprint at the clinic. Its eyes were bulbous, glassy and black, and it shimmered eerily against the rain. It stuck out a long pink tongue and began to lick my window. It was a slow, delicate movement, finished by what looked to be a single suction cup at the end of its tongue, which came off with a pop. And it continued, almost hypnotically. I doubted that what I was seeing was real. And in a flash, it was gone. Colours shifting and changing as Chameleon Man cloaked himself, becoming one with the rain. I heard a final pop against the window as I watched, entranced, confused and lacking judgment. I fell right back asleep. When I woke up, I was sure that it was all a nightmare, and yet the curtains were open. I edged towards the window, now horrified to see a familiar handprint on the glass. And the more I thought about the whole experience, the more it seemed all too familiar. It was almost as if I'd heard it all before. That was it! One of my patients, Rosa, had been talking about that Chameleon Man, one, almost coincidentally, I was due for an appointment with, an hour from now. Right, I still had to go to work. I got my things ready and poured a box of cornflakes sponsored by Chameleon Man himself. They tasted sour to my lips as I bit through them, touched by the slimy claws of Chameleon Man. Or was it probably the fact that my milk was coagulated and spoiled? I've got to buy more milk later, I thought as I began my walk to work. Once again, I passed the board with all the missing children's posters on it, which now included Oliver. I heard a noise then, a rapid succession of clicking right behind me. I whizzed around, seeing nothing. I heard the noise again, the clicking now coming from a bush. I began to back up now, as the bushes began rustling. No wind could be felt, and no animal was hiding beneath. No, now all of them, all at once. And then I sighed in relief as a raccoon burst out of the bushes, a bug in hand. It paused, right in front of me, and began to eat it. That's when it vanished. It was snatched away like a flash of lightning, swung to the side and into nothingness. I saw a silhouette of something other as I backed away faster. Blood appeared on the sidewalk and I ran. I ran before whatever invisible thing that was devouring the raccoon could take me too. And before I knew it, I was safe in my office, 5 minutes before my next appointment. Quickly I headed to my files, opened it and took out the files I needed. Rosa Lopez. I saw what I feared there too. She'd been talking about seeing Chameleon Man outside her window, licking and popping, and even in broad daylight, gesturing towards itself, as if to invite her with it. So it lured the children to come with it, I thought. Glenn led Rosa and her mother into my clinic. I greeted the young girl, and we soon headed into my office. She, too, was coming for sleep problems, just like Oliver. Perhaps, I thought, perhaps they both, and all the other missing people saw Chameleon Man. "Hi, Rosa," I greeted, sitting down on my rolling chair. "Good morning, Dr. Howell," she replied. After a bit of small talk with her mother, I finally decided to point the conversation into the direction I wanted. "I want to know about Chameleon Man, not the show, but the one you see outside your window, licking your window," I inquired. Rosa's expression changed from composed to fear. "He's still there, but he didn't come yesterday." "All right," I murmured. "Anything else?" "But he doesn't only come at night, you know," she continued. This was new. "I saw him this morning, too. I was watching his show on TV, and then he showed up outside the window. He looked nice in the daytime, but my mummy always says not to trust strangers." I sighed in relief. A question popped into my head. "This is going to sound weird, but has any of your friends seen Chameleon Man too?" "Yeah!" she exclaimed. "Oliver was talking about seeing him all the time and wanting to go with him. Cody saw him too, when he was walking his dog. He was trying to get him to go into the forest. Ava too. I saw her walking off with him while we were at the playground." Cody, Ava, those names stuck shivers down my spine. Some of the kids whose names were on the board at the library. The rest of the session was devoid of any other information. Normal, even. But now I was more confused. What was this thing? The actor of Chameleon Man? They did film not too far away. Or something else. I would have to talk to Buckley about this, and before I knew it, I was at the Cromera police station. "So you're saying your patient saw him?" Buckley questioned. "Not just her," I continued. "Her friends. And Oliver saw it too. Rosa even saw one of her friends lured by him into the woods." I paused, and then went on. "And I think I saw him too." I'd explained that I'd seen him outside of my window, watching me, although I didn't say anything about the licking, or the fact that he vanished before my eyes. "Okay," he murmured. "It might be someone from the show. I think I can convince Pritchard this is a big enough case to deal with. He'll think it'll make him get promoted some more or something." "Good," I nodded. "Call me if you know more." "Will do."
"Buckley," the chief interrupted. "What are you doing talking to that man? Get back to work."
Buckley sighed and went back to work, and I too returned to the office to see a few more patients. Before I knew it, it was 9, the time I closed the clinic, and on my way home, I passed by a small grocery store, got the milk I needed. Very soon, I was home. I turned on the TV just as the phone started ringing. I rushed to my phone, picking up Buckley's call. "Hello, Officer Buckley. Anything?" "I don't know if it is," he began, "but look at the news. We do have a suspect." I focused on the news. The set of The Adventures of Chameleon Man and Friends at San Francisco had been raided an hour ago, and the titular actor, David Montgomery, had been arrested over suspicions of being linked to a slew of missing children statewide. The TV promptly played a leaked clip of the raid. Some officers were fighting with the actors, who were attempting to stop them. The chief was there too, eating donuts as usual, and patting himself on the back, saying, "Good work, everyone," although he seemed content not doing anything. Although Montgomery, still in costume, yelled that he was innocent, he was forced into a police car in handcuffs anyway. The director protested, but the cops shoved him away. "So, is it him?" I asked. "Chief thinks it is," Buckley replied, "but not me. The others who were on set with him are his alibi." "Could it be someone working with him, or another actor kidnapping kids?" I theorized. "We're looking into that," Buckley assured. "Some of the other actors have a criminal record, but nothing including children. But I found something weirder, though." "What?" I coughed, a plume of dust falling onto my head. "Sorry, what?" "It's not just our town," he continued. "I heard a thumping on the ceiling, and several more dust clouds began to fall. It's been happening statewide. Children seeing Chameleon Man and disappearing a few days later." "Really?" I asked. "So it's not just—" I stopped halfway when I heard a thud on my TV. It fell over, falling onto the carpet. I heard a clicking sound next, a rapid succession of clicks and clacks that was eerily familiar. And then the thing appeared out of nowhere, right on the fallen TV set, lips laced with blood and bulbous glassy eyes that stared into my soul. "Chameleon Man," I said, right before the thing charged and pounced. "What?" I heard Buckley say, right before I haphazardly threw the phone at the monster. It hissed, and I backed away, only to trip on a pillow. The thing snarled in anger, and now I was throwing anything I could at it. Pillows, blankets, a lamp, anything. Nothing seemed to work, so I ran for my life, opening the door and slamming it shut. I sighed in relief as I locked it shut, trapping the thing inside my house. As I backed away, the knocking stopped. I heard a familiar click, and then crash! The humanoid lizard burst through a window, eyes on me and bits of glass on its skin. I ran for my life, hoping that someone would see me, but no matter what, nobody was there. Everyone was fast asleep. And the thing was fast on my trail, just as I saw a familiar place, the police station. I thanked the universe that I lived close to the station. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my leg and fell over. The thing had sunk its sharp teeth into it and tore at it, but I kicked it on the head with all my might, briefly slowing it down. With the rest of my strength, I dashed to the police station, seeing a very confused Buckley welcome me in. "Close the door!" I shouted. "Chameleon Man is out there!" "What?" Buckley gasped. His nincompoop of a boss, Chief Pritchard, was there, having a nap. "Close the door!" I repeated. "The actor?" he asked. "We arrested him. He got sent to one of the larger stations a few cities away." "No!" I pointed at the monster that was rapidly approaching. "That!" Officer Buckley's face turned white from horror and shut the doors and locked it, just as Chameleon Man slammed into it, waking the sleeping beast, Chief Pritchard, from his slumber. Bang! Chameleon Man slammed in once more. Bang! "The hell's making that noise?" Chief Pritchard demanded. The banging continued. "Open the door." "That thing is no man," Buckley murmured. "Something unnatural." Chief Pritchard ignored him and lazily walked towards the door. Chameleon Man slammed in once more and began to tear at it, and suddenly a piece of the wooden door shattered. Through the large hole we saw the face of the Chameleon Man, grinning with blood-laced lips. Chief Pritchard screamed and ran, just as the monster burst in. The chief instantly made it into a small holding cell and locked himself in. Oh, the only holding cell. I followed Buckley out to an emergency exit. We heard Chief Pritchard's screams of terror, though we later learned he was fine, and that the monster merely tried to break the metal bars. "Car!" Buckley shouted, just as I heard the lizard's hiss behind us. Buckley took the driver's seat and I took his handgun. Chameleon Man slammed into the side, and he hit the pedal, slamming us right into Chameleon Man. We heard a slight hiss, and then silence. Is it dead?" I whispered, thinking aloud. And then we saw a headless shape rise up in front of us. It was just the suit. Its insides were nothing but black nothingness. It was a living, breathing costume. The thing jumped onto the car roof, and Buckley hit the gas, knocking it off and into the side of the road. And then we drove from there, trying to get away from the Chameleon Man, which had set its head back onto its body. We saw the thing chase after us through the side mirrors, but soon it was gone from sight. Did we lose it?" Buckley asked, eyes on the road. I turned around and saw nothing. "I think so." "Good, that's..." Chameleon Man erupted from the forest like a rabid dog and slammed into the side of the car. With hooked claws it began to climb, obscuring the glass, and we crashed into a tree, but the force was enough to fling the living suit a distance away. But it was regaining itself now, despite the rips and tears into the fabric. "Get out!" Buckley shouted, kicking open the door. I tried, but I was stuck. The seatbelt was too tangled. I can't! Buckley found a pocket knife in his belt and cut me loose with some difficulty. We climbed out of the fallen car and out into the open. Rain fell as we fumbled on the grass. Thunder and lightning shook the skies. And Chameleon Man was nearby too, rising up to his full height and snarling, no, roaring into the air. We backed away, hearing the rush of a river through the storm nearby. I turned, realizing we were at an abandoned bridge. Below us was a river lined with rocks and the remains of an old, derailed train. The two of us were on the edge, backing off as Chameleon Man inched towards us. The thing snarled and leapt. I dodged the attack, but it leapt at Officer Buckley. He struggled with the fabric demon, fighting its claws as it scratched and tore at him. I backed away, scared, but then, with courage I felt in my bones, I charged at Chameleon Man, grabbing onto it and knocking it off Buckley. The young officer reached for the gun on his belt and fired everything he had at the monster. Bullet holes appeared, revealing the empty air within it. But still it persisted, being illuminated by lightning. It pounced at us again, armed race to claw at us. That's when I leapt at it, screaming a battle cry and knocking it over the bridge, first hitting the wooden railing, which collapsed, sending it plummeting into the river. We watched its look of utter confusion as it fell through the air and crashed into the river. It flailed for a final moment as the waves smashed it into jagged rocks and was at last swept away by the current. "What was that?" Buckley cried, panting. "Whatever it is, I just hope that that's the last we see of it," I shrugged. Though we didn't know, miles away on the set of Chameleon Man, all in the dead of night, all the missing kids appeared out of thin air. Being at night, nobody saw them appear. When asked where they were, none could truly explain, at least nothing believable. They told stories of another world, fighting the forces of evil with their favourite, though now feared, character, Chameleon Man. As for Chief Pritchard, Buckley told me that he was demoted a few days later, and another, more experienced officer rose to become chief of the station. And since the suit had been knocked into the river, no kids saw that wretched reptile ever again. The show plummeted to failure after a number of mysterious accidents and was eventually cancelled. Not long after, kids were all caught up in the latest new fad. But sometimes I wondered, even now, decades after I'd last seen the thing, what exactly was it? A possessed suit? A demon? Was it alive? I don't know, but nevertheless, I still found myself trying to piece it all back together. I moved away from Cremera a few years after the incident, but I kept regular contact with Buckley, him updating me on the town every once in a while, and I'd visit every so often. But now, more than 30 years after that thing fell over the bridge, I'm hearing talks about starting a reboot of the adventures of Chameleon Man and friends. The reason? A man by the name of Jeremy Pritchard, no doubt the chief's son, had discovered it while fishing, washed up on the shores of the Sacramento River. Further investigation by the Julian Page Institute has allowed us to determine that the entity may have been a cursed artifact sold by Kane Hunter, more commonly known as the Merchant of the Night.